Hey, what's happening? What's popping, guys? Today we just got done watching GBA Season 6 draft. And it was quite interesting because you saw a lot of mons come off the board relatively early from the lower tiers. Another thing that we saw is a lot of the hazard removal games and hazard setters came off very prominently. So you saw guys like the Battler X who drafted a Mega Pincer, which is very crucial to get a defogger. A spinner was not really able to get a reliable one, being a Sand Slash and a Golbat. It's going to be very annoying for him to face Stealth Rocks because he has the Mega Pincer. He's going to click return. There's going to be something, a rock type or whatever, that's going to switch in. He's forced out, and if rocks are up, your Mega Pincer's done. A lot of very exciting drafts. Like, for example, MV's team does look like a complete scum team, but the combination between Jirachi and Togekiss is very unique because one's a fairy type, one's a steel type. Two of the best, unarguably the best typings in the game being steel and fairy, because they have so many resistances and so many things can, switch into a fairy type move. And the Mega Fabio pick being, extremely interesting. He drafted things like Gyarados, Keldeo, things like that. I didn't really understand drafting why so many, water types or whatever. I'd fully expect him to get, rid of either the Keldeo or the Gyarados. I don't really see a need for him to get rid of the shell smashing water type thing, which is pretty cool because if you baton pass that into something, it's good game, and you don't have to invest anything in any of the offenses or speed with it because you make it incredibly full bulk with baton pass. You abuse the GBA's rules and baton pass clause, and the tier 5 mon that nobody has ever drafted becomes now something you have to prepare for every single week. The thing with the lower tiers is if you have a mon that opponents have to prepare for and you don't bring it, that is the name of the game. And with what is it, the Gorbis, it really capitalizes that with Envy. And also the Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet can be counterproductive because it might be able to stop a choice mon. I mean, that's kind of like the name of the game with Wobbuffet. You come in like choice specs, whatever, you click mirror code or whatever bullshit, and then you kill it. But the problem with that, though, is that if they're preparing for a Wobbuffet, they come in with whatever they prepared for, and they set up sweep on you. Unless, I'm not sure. Yeah, well, Encore, so, another very good team that I think did a very good job is the Arizona DXs, which is Gubs. I think Gubs is a very good player. He knows what he's talking about, but he didn't draft that well in my opinion, and I don't know where his head was with GBA last year, but I think he really cares. You saw him right off the bat get Garchomp, which is very solid. One of the best mons in OU right now. The ice weakness, kind of annoying because you can always work around the ice weaknesses. But you see this kind of prevalent in his team with the Garchomp, the Mandibuzz, the Moongus. I mean, these are his premier mons. But he does have the Mega Manectric paired with... so there's not really a U-turn aspect, but the things that I really like about Gub's team is that it's a balanced team that has interesting options. For example, he was talking about that Porygon. I don't know if you guys realized, but recently in VGC, there was a Trick Room Porygon Z, which like Porygon Z has base 90 or base 90 speed or whatever, and it has the option of Trick Room, which it's kind of like a middle tier speed, but if utilized correctly, like Porygon Z can do a lot of things. I think John, drafting John-like things, typically, things like Reuniclus, things that are always very successful in the GBA, but I think it's really going to limit himself this year against very good opponents because they're going to see, he's bringing a Landorus. Obviously, we know what that thing does. We've seen it a million times in OU. That's not going to be too hard to prepare for. Um, George, I think he's always going to have solid years in the GBA going forward, but um, I think his team is overwhelmingly weak to steel types. I mean, you see really the only answers for it um, being Infernape and Skull burning it with Milotic or whatever. But um, I get it. You have a Magneton to trap the steel types, but Shed Shell, like for example, Skarmory really, really hampers this guy. And I mean, I guess you can work around it, but because you have a Mega Beedrill, you have the Lotties that are weak to, well, don't really do that much to steel types. Um, I mean, I guess you can run coverage with the Latias, but you're limited there. I think Tump did all right. Tump has, kind of like this pretty cool balance team with a lot of, as he said, potentially what 4 or 5 different leads. Which, if you have a correct lead and you gain momentum early game, you can really devastate your opponents. I wasn't really impressed with the Utah Jasmines. I think he was just picking Mons just to kind of just like pick Mons for the fun of it. Um, Arcaniners, the San Francisco Giants, excuse me, drafted a very natural bulk team, but things like Manaphy and Entei, they have very good natural bulk, but they're wall breakers, which is very, very fun. That's kind of his name of the game, where he prefers more of the bulkier options. But real real, I was definitely not a fan of the Zebstrika fan. Zebstrika completely confused me, because it's like, I get that fast electric types really are used in the GBA, and Volt Switch is always good, but not necessarily if you have a Zebstrika, because it's like, even if your opponent doesn't have that good of ways to even stop Volt Switch, I don't know, because it doesn't have any offensive presence, and its coverage moves are good, but what is it, base 70 or base 80 special attack. You're going to become setup fodder. You're going to become, you can always switch into something bulky that has instant recovery on the Volt Switch. It's not that hard to find an answer for Zebstrika. Teams are never going to prepare for it, and even when you do bring it, which I think the only times you would ever bring it is when it's like completely obvious, which is like, if they don't have a means of stopping Volt Switch. It's even Choice Spec Zebstrika is not going to be doing that much. Zebstrika is actually a better physical attack user, and it's just not good. I think the most scary drafts by far, though, is going to be Chimpact. The reason why Chimpact has easily the most scary draft is that he knows what he's doing when it comes to battling, and he has a semi-rain team. And it doesn't matter, in this format, you cannot dedicate a complete weather team, or a complete trick room team, or a complete one-dimensional team. Because when you do, it's a counter, you just counter your opponent, and if you're only a one-trick pony, you can easily deal with that. But giving access to Tornadus to be able to be, that bulky regen monster, or a Life Orb set, which I think on his team, it makes a lot more sense that Tornadus, the guy who he franchised, is going to be a Life Orb set. Not many things actually switch into Tornadus, other than things like, I guess, like bulky electric types or Raikos. And actually, Raiko didn't even get drafted, so that's really, really good for him. Another thing, the aspect of Politoed and Kingdra. Kingdra instantly is a win condition every single week that he brings it, because Kingdra, the only thing that I really can even think of that kind of walls it, well, completely walls it, is Empoleon. Now, there are things like Whimsicott that can switch into its dual stabs, but I'm pretty sure Hydro in the Rain 2 KOs it, and it does have access to Ice Beam. So Kingdra is an obvious win condition every single week that he brings it. I'm incredibly impressed with his draft. Mega DNC, it's one of those Mons that has a 4x weakness, and I've actually brought HP Steel versus other Mega DNCs, but it's very difficult to switch into Moonblast, Earth Power, and Diamond Storm, and that is the reason why it is going to be very, very good in his hands. I think he is the guy, not Envy anymore. I think Chimpact is the guy to look out for the most. What are your guys' thoughts? What do you guys, think of A Drive completely taking over Mogwai's old team? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm out. Peace.